Also provide easy access to legal services, abundant natural light, ample outdoor recreation, contact visitation, noise control, freedom of movement, programming opportunities consistent with detainee demographics, and state-of-the-art medical facilities. The facilities must be supervised, be safe and secure, and prevent unauthorized entry and egress, and also provide appropriate custody and care of ICE detention population. Within that statement of objectives, they also indicated that the facility should be in the neighborhood of 500 to 700 bed facility, although that number could change. Number 6, were other communities considered for this center? It's our understanding that ICE received a number of additional responses from other communities that would serve the Chicago Metropolitan Area. I'm sorry, I'm just turning this off so my phone doesn't inadvertently go off. We do know that in an article in the Kankakee Daily Journal, a site was submitted by Kankakee County. We also know that a site in Oregon, Illinois was submitted also. Okay, now, has this project been approved by the village board, the elected officials of the village? The answer to that is no. Nothing has been presented for review or approval by the elected officials. In an article dated January 12th by Phil Cadner in the Southtown newspaper, and I believe Phil contacted ICE officials for a comment, they indicated they have not yet signed any agreements or committed to any long-term obligations on this project in the Chicago metropolitan area. Number 8, based upon what is currently known, and should the project move forward, what will be the relationship between the village, ICE, and CCA in the process? Again, the process that was established by ICE would establish an intergovernmental agreement between the village and ICE regarding the facility and the provision of these detention services. The village would subsequently enter an agreement with ICE to fulfill those provisions.
CCA.
I'm sorry, with CCA, to fulfill those provisions established in the agreement between the village and ICE. CCA will be responsible for the construction, ownership, and operation of the facility. Number 9, have any of these agreements been negotiated and do they exist? Again, the answer is no. The village has not yet been contacted by ICE regarding the next steps in the process. No negotiations regarding these agreements have been held. Subsequently, no draft agreements currently exist. We've had an FOI request by a couple of the local papers, the Tribune, the Southtown. I think they can tell you the information that was given to them did not include any type of agreements that exist at this point. Where is the proposed location for the facility? When we were approached by CCA, they had identified a parcel of property, the area south of Burville Road, north of New Money Road, east of Main Street, near the southern end of Hartman Drive. Okay, I think everybody pretty much knows where the location of that proposed facility is at this time. Okay, it's within the village limits. It's currently zoned I-1 limited industrial. It's in an area that in our comprehensive plan for a village that was done in 1997, established this area as a future industrial corridor of development within the village. Public, quasi-public, and governmental buildings and facilities are permitted uses in the I-1 limited industrial zoning district. That was established in 1982, right, Mike?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so those uses were spelled out when that zoning district was developed, and that zoning ordinance was developed in 1982. Okay? The property is under contract for purchase right now by CCA. It is currently owned by a private owner who's entered into a contract to sell the property to CCA. What types of information will be considered prior to any approvals being granted by the board? Besides the content of the various agreements that need to be drafted for approval, which will include the intergovernmental agreements between the village and ICE, the village and CCA, etc., the village will gather and evaluate information on, and by no means is this list meant to be all-inclusive, because things could come up during the process that would trigger additional information being required by the board that would be considered for approval. But it will evaluate information on CCA and their operations. And we've already done some of that homework with respect to CCA. We've already toured some of their facilities. We've already looked at some of the information that's been given to us by some of the people in this room, and we will continue to do so. And the effects of these types of facilities on property values, effects on these types of facilities on future economic development trends, We've also initially contacted by phone some of the communities that have CCA facilities in their village limits or city limits presently right now, and asking them for input regarding what that has done in terms of property values, trends, and things of that nature. That's the kind of stuff we're going to continue to do also. Economic impacts to the village, effects of the proposed project on services, effects on the village infrastructure, the need for any on or off-site infrastructure improvements the project may be required to make, engineering and drainage issues, other environmental issues, site layout, including ingress and egress to the site, on-site circulation, building appearance and site appearance, including landscape, and again, like I said, any additional information that may be required prior to approval. Number 12, will public information meetings be held prior to approval? Yes, the direction from day one from this village board has been to provide public informational meetings when and if this project moves forward and prior to anything being approved or considered for approval. This is important, and I've asked everybody that I've talked to, and I'm going to tell all you folks in here too, go to our website, as it's indicated in here, villageofcrete.org, sign up for our news flash by clicking on the Notify Me button and following the instructions. Make sure you enable your computer not to see this as spam. I did this with my own home email address. It sent it to spam, and it told me after a while it was no longer going to send me any information. Make sure you do that and you adjust your cookies or whatever you got to do with that in order to make that happen. Number 13, is there a timeline for approval? No, there is no timeline for approval because the project hasn't started going through the approval process yet, because nothing exists to take to the approval process as of yet. So there is no timeline that has started. There's no clock that has started ticking with respect to this. Okay, we've not yet been contacted by ICE regarding the next steps, therefore no timeline exists. When and if we are contacted by ICE and it moves forward, we did do a timetable back in September, kind of outline what some of the approvals would be and how long that we can anticipate that may take. Again, you need to look at this with a big red asterisk next to it, because depending upon how many public informational meetings are held, depending on how much information is required, depending on when information can be brought to the village, brought from ICE, from CCA, etc., that process could take longer than that. So this is something we often do for projects that we are considering for approval, is to give an idea about what the timeline might be for something like that. But again, that can certainly change. Mayor?
Well, I think that as a parenthetical at the bottom here, we have to remember that this is what we know and what we can tell you about for right now. And quite frankly, there's probably some things in here that could potentially change. And that's one of the things that I think everybody needs to take into account. You know, if we're saying it's set 500 to 700 beds, it may wind up being 400. It could be 1,000. We don't know. We had never been told. There is this timeline for approval. ICE may have a timeline, but they've never shared that with us. And quite frankly, we've really never talked to ICE. We've never negotiated with ICE. We've never sat down with ICE to negotiate anything. We've never sat down with CCA to negotiate anything. Nothing. Okay? We did go, like Tom said, to Washington. Actually, we went on 2 different occasions. The first occasion, we sat in a room for about 20 minutes and listened to a presentation that CCA made. It was kind of like a generic thing because they're trying to be involved in these same types of institutions in several other places in the country. So it was more of a generic proposal, I guess, if you'd want to call it that they made. The only thing that ICE asked me when I was there was, how do you think this is going to be accepted by the public? And I said, I really couldn't tell you, and I don't know. I mean, I told the guy that we've had several different projects, Walt's Grocery Store, McDonald's, St. James Manor. There have been a lot of projects that have met with resistance that, quite frankly, surprised me. So I really can't say, and I can't tell you how my trustees will look at this under the circumstance, because we don't have any real documents to examine. And they said they thanked me for being frank and honest with them, and that was really the end of the discussion. The next time we went there, which was in November of 2011, We flew out there in the morning,